COVID-19 pandemic has had quite a negative impact on the tourism sector. It was forced to retrench some of its employees while other businesses had, of course, to shut down. But now the sector is trying to recover and is calling on employees to take unpaid leave. To discuss this even further, we're joined by labour expert Jonathan Goldberg. And thank you so much for talking to us this morning. Good morning to you, Jonathan. Let's talk about what exactly employers are asking of employees here.
Good morning to you and your viewers. So effectively, if you are, in terms of the Disaster Management Act, restricted from operating, then it suspends the contract of employment, no work, no pay. So take an example, if restaurants or hotel establishments were not allowed to operate during certain periods of lockdown, then that would be no work, no pay, and no accrual of benefits. It suspends the contract. The difficult question is where there's a partial closure. So take an example, conference centres where you're limited to 50 people per venue, and therefore you don't need all your employees. Then that's still a limitation in the Disaster Management Act, and then you'd have to rotate your employees fairly in respect to that work that's available. So that's the law. The law would be no work, no pay if the Disaster Management Act specifically restricts your operation. If you can't operate because of the economy, that's no work, no pay. The employee presents themselves for work and therefore expects to be paid. If you can't do that, then you have to follow the 189 or 189A retrenchment process.
All right. So for clarity's sake, because I'm sure there are probably some of our viewers who are affected directly by this, and perhaps they don't even want to take this unpaid leave. First of all, is it illegal, for an employer to request, employees to take this unpaid leave, as you've mentioned, but also, are employers really asking them to, or is more you're being forced to take it? There's absolutely no choice.
So the first question is the employer can ask you to take leave, paid leave. So if you have accrued paid leave, but in the instance where you don't have accrued paid leave, then the question would be, are you restricted as the employer from operating because of the Disaster Management Act? If you are, then it could be no work, no pay. But some of the instances are where the employer is entitled to operate, level 3 as an example, and then they just don't have the volume of work. Now that's either by agreed on layoff, that's no work, no pay, or if you can't then operate and restructure, then you'd have to go there. But what we're encouraging parties to do is to negotiate a compromise, because the last thing you want to do is lose any more jobs. So there's got to be a compromise between that. And that's why UIF has created the scheme of benefits, UIF TERS benefits for these periods, for these sectors, to help this no work, no pay situation.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned there, the encouragement to reach some sort of a compromise and, be in talks and sort of negotiate, because then my next question was, if an employee then decides not to take this unpaid leave, what are the consequences for that decision?
Well, then you'd have to enter into a retrenchment, because if the employee then presents themselves for work, you have work and you're not restricted, then you have to pay that person. And if you can't pay that person anymore because your operation is economically strapped, then that would be a retrenchment. But the compromise is to utilize, and we're encouraging employers to really apply for all these tranches of UIF TERS, and where they can advance people the money, because payments could go directly back to employers who advance money, loan money, or give people paid leave. And what we're also encouraging is that to ensure that people who've taken leave, if they are repaid the TERS money, that leave then gets reset in terms of gets given back to the employees, the paid leave.
No, I have to let you go just a moment, Jonathan. Before I do, you mentioned the UIF TERS, here. And I remember just last year, there was so much commotion and chaos. I mean, different businesses, not just the tourism industry. We've spoken to either talking about how that particular relief was meant to assist businesses. It did not. Employees also saying they didn't really receive any relief whatsoever from the employers. From your understanding, where does it stand now? Has it been effective?
Well, nearly 62 billion rand has been paid out to workers over the COVID period, and that's a huge amount of money. There are still a lot of problems in respect of payment out, appeals, etc., but we're working hard as NEDLAC parties in respect of solving those daily, virtually. There are parties working on those particular solutions. And it is quite complex because of the different lockdown periods and different criteria that apply to different industries and different sectors of the economy during those lockdown periods. But it's work in progress. And, I think ultimately there are some problems still, and a whole range of problems, because there's mass applications. But 62 billion has been paid out, which is a significant amount of money in terms of relief.
All right, we'll leave it there. Jonathan Goldberg from Global Business Solutions, thank you so much for your time.